Hey, Rabid Wombat. Hey, Pandar. Whew. Yes, we have sub badges. I made them. If you're a Robotech fan, you'll recognize them as the heads of the Veritex, and they increase in rank and character generally as... No, don't report me. Don't report me. Yeah, we got a lot of maxes. All of my cool people who are in 4 months? I don't know, however it works. I filled up all the ones that I could without having to be a partner. I did all the affiliate ones at least. I know some people just do like first month, 3 month, 6 month or something, but nope, I did them all. So you see lots of changes. But again, like founders don't get access to those. I don't know what. I mean, the founders badge is cool. The little first. Hi. So it's Monday. We had an exciting weekend. Really good Saturday Warhammer show with Jessica. Those shows are really fun. Looking forward to doing those more. My founders can remove their founders badge site-wide to get normal. Oh, interesting, Pandar. Yeah, that was a question that we had before. Well, thank you for that information. So, founders, it's up to you if you want to keep your founders badge and whatever other founders badges you have, or swap it out for the fancy ones. Up to you. So yeah, we had the Warhammer show on Saturday. What was I saying? Yes, which was good. Continues to be good. Oh, right. And then I've got my YouTube channel up and running. It's, for now at least, it's just streams that I then export to YouTube, which surprisingly takes a lot of time and effort because I have to like title it and description and add tags, and then I have to cut off the beginning part where it has like my little intro thing, because then there's music that gets dinged and all that. But it's chugging along. I just have to remember to do it like periodically, not wait a long time and then have a whole bunch of videos to process. But it's going. Already a couple people have like randomly come across my videos and liked it, and then come back to Twitch and followed me. So hey, that was the whole idea, and it is working. So that's good. Yeah, and then Saturday night we were going to have our usual Homebuddies group stream, and then a couple of people couldn't make it for various reasons, and then we decided just to do a little hangout, and that was cool too. I really enjoyed it, hanging out with Cameron and Jessica. I mean, they're great people. I always love hanging out with them. They are members of the Homebuddies. If somehow you are here and you are not a member of the Homebuddies, I can't imagine that's actually happening, but there you go. This week is... What's happening this week? Wow. I think it should be all the normal stuff this week. I don't think there's anything crazy happening. I know, who are these Homebuddies people? I'm surprised, but I'll allow it that none of you have remarked on my cool new quarantine haircut. I guess I'm sitting a little bit high for it. It's all right. My wife did it yesterday. I think it's okay. Do I? That's good, Zardas. Oh man, all the jokes about what is happening there and how people have to hold him down. Yeah, we'll see what happens today. There could be all sorts of crazy news and things going on. If you are just now joining us, this is Monday, which means it's Mythology Monday. What do we do on Mythology Monday? Well, typically we read and discuss. So we're almost done. Well, getting almost done with Ovid's Metamorphoses. That is Roman mythology. We are in book 11 out of... How many books are in this thing? 15 books, and then there's a glossary and index and stuff, so there's... We got a little bit left. And again, what'll be very interesting when we get to the end is that Ovid ramps his mythology stories right into actual Roman history. So we actually get some like history and real historical characters at the end of the book. Not a lot, but it's brief. Yeah, there's a lot of incest. A lot of incest. I don't know how much there will be today, but there's usually some. So I'm really excited about this next section because we're gonna get some various stories relating to Troy, the Trojan War, and the characters who are there. But I'm excited about reading these stories because I have a lot of digressions that I'm gonna go on. So it's the usual. Oh yeah, there's always cringe happening. Last time we were reading about Midas, right? He got the golden. He helped out. Basically, he helped out a friend of Dionysus. He was able to get a wish for anything he wanted, and he wished, "I wish everything I touched turned to gold." Which is not really a good wish if you think about it. He was able to get that removed, but then later he made a bad choice in a competition between between somebody competing with a god. He chose the other person and was punished by having his ears turned into those of an ass, but they were turned back. And then we got that note that even in Ovid's time, you can't trust your barber to keep a secret. It's true. True things. All right, so we're going to continue on. The next story is called The Building of the Walls of Troy. Hold on. There's always like I got to figure out where I am in like the upper story. Okay, so basically Apollo is flying around over the ocean, and there Apollo saw Laomedon building the walls of his new city, Troy, and saw the work was hard and going slowly, demanding no small resource. He and Neptune, the trident-bearing sire of swelling ocean, assumed the form of men and built the walls, payment in gold contracted for and promised. There stood the work, but King Laomedon denied his obligation, adding lies, swearing he never agreed to such a bargain. "Still you will pay," the sea god roared, and loosed his waters over the shore of that stingy country. He flooded it to sea, swept off the crops, drowned fields, and this was not enough. The princess, Hesione, he ordered, must be given as prey to a sea monster. She was bound to the hard cliffs, and Hercules set her free, and made demand for what he had been promised, payment in horses. And Laomedon once more denied the debt. "Too much," he said. So Hercules stormed the walls, and Troy, twice liar, was taken twice. And Telamon, who shared the soldiering with Hercules, received Hesione as prize, and Peleus won a goddess for a bride, the lovely Thetis. Now many men had fathers who had been the sons of Jove, but Peleus took more pride in father-in-law than grandsire. He alone, of all Jove's grandsons, was the only one to wed a goddess. Okay, so it was a short story, but there's a lot packed in there. Essentially what we're talking about regarding the walls of Troy. Oh, and there's not really a transformation here. There's just Apollo and Neptune disguising themselves as humans, but that's not really a transformation. Ovid, you're shirking your duties here. Okay, so there's this story about right? There's Telamon. It comes from ancient mythology. So there's the story about the building of the walls of Troy. Yes. Yeah, so and again, Ovid is really selective about what he wants to talk about. We've seen epic tales condensed to just a couple of paragraphs, and we've seen love stories between two youths stretched out into a dozen pages. And it just depends on, what he's trying to tell, where the transformation is, and so on. So yeah, so there's a more ancient story about how the first king of the land of Troy wanted to build this giant fortification, this essentially like a castle, and was looking to hire people to do it. And the people he ended up hiring were Apollo and Poseidon, Neptune, in disguise. And if you remember back to the Prose Edda, we read about a very similar thing with the Asgardians hiring a giant to build their stronghold. And again, just like that one, here we don't have any of the details, right? They build it, and then we just hear that Laomedon doesn't honor it, and they get mad. Okay, well, we don't. But anyway, the details were, again, like they had to build it in a certain time, and then he would give them certain things, blah 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 blah. Which again is very, very similar to the Asgardian story. And in that one, they had promised one of the goddesses to the giant, and then as the giant was almost done and seemingly going to complete this thing, they tried to trick him. They sent Loki to mess with him. So interesting, though, that in that one, the gods were jerks about it, but in this one, it was the human who was a jerk. So yeah, so the gods are mad. Excuse me. Neptune sends water flooding over everything. Hercules comes and smashes it, because that's pretty much all Hercules ever does. But yeah, an interesting. Again, there's a theme of gods being involved in the building of great walls and bargains for it that are often broken. So now we're going to go into the story of Thetis. I will spell this out. Yeah, if you're known for a thing, you got to do the thing. And if you don't know who Thetis is, if you don't remember, we talked about her before, but you'll find out in just a moment. So it's literally called the story of Thetis. Old Proteus, one of the sea gods, had told Thetis, "Goddess of the waves, conceive! You will be the mother of a son who, grown to manhood, will surpass his father, be called a greater man." The warning reached the ears of Jove, who felt hot fires of love deep in his heart for Thetis, but wanted nothing above himself in all the universe. Therefore he kept away from her embrace, bidding his grandson, the son of Aeacus, assume the role of lover, entering this virgin of the ocean. Hey, Eredinsk. Okay, so right off the bat, we have some cool stuff happening. So first of all, we're couching Thetis in a story about gods of the sea, because Thetis she's a sea goddess, a sea nymph, which will be important. And in Greek and Roman mythology, there are several themes that have to do with sea deities, especially minor ones, which we'll get to in just a moment. But we have this thing that right off, Proteus says, Thetis, whoever fathers your son will be more powerful than him. Now Jupiter, Zeus, we hear that Jupiter was in love with Thetis and wanted to have sex with her. But, holy crap, if you think all the way back, Zeus had overthrown his father, who had overthrown his father. So the last thing Jupiter wants is to have sex with someone who's prophesied to give birth to someone who's more powerful than his father. So this is one of the absolute rare times when Jupiter actually refrains from getting with someone, but for a good reason, and instead basically passes her off to one of his grandchildren in this case. So basically, like, there's a human hero, so I'm going to send the human hero to be with her, so that even though the child of that union is going to be greater, it's not going to affect me in any way. So there we go. There is a bay on the Thessalian coast, curved like a sickle, good harborage, where the water. Good harborage were the water only deeper. There sea runs smooth over the sandy shoal. There shore holds firm, retains no footprints, halts no traveler, is free from seaweed. Myrtle grows near, dense with bicolored fruit. A cavern lies in a grove, made possibly by nature, by art more likely. To this cavern often came Thetis, naked, riding a bridled dolphin, and Peleus found her there, and seized her, sleeping. Pleaded, and had refusal for his answer. and would have returned to force, but she escaped him with those old arts she knew. So Peleus goes there. He finds her. She often goes there, hanging out naked with her bridal dolphin, as you do. Comes upon her sleeping. And here, first he asks her for her consent. She says no. He's about to turn to force, but instead she uses the old arts that she knew. She was a bird. He held the bird. She was a tree. He clung, holding the trunk. She was a spotted tigress. Thank you for the follow. She was a spotted tigress, and he let go, and turned and prayed to the sea gods, pouring them wine, offering the smoke of incense, entrails of sheep, till the Carpathian sea god rose from his depths with counsel. You will have her some day, O son of Aeacus. You must catch her asleep in that deep cave, and bind her, sleeping, with every kind of noose and snare, and hold her for all the 100 lies she tells you, with changing form, till she becomes again what once she was. And Proteus sank beneath the waves that hid his features, as the waters closed over his words. Entrails of sheep, yeah. So here we have Thetis is using the old ways, and she's transforming into a bunch of different things to escape Peleus's advances. And now as I was saying before, one of the big themes in ancient mythology of sea gods and sea goddesses is this ability to change shape and change form into basically anything. And there's this idea, literally going back all the way to the ancient world, how changeable the sea is, because sometimes the sea is great and it helps you out, and at other times the sea just messes you up and breaks apart your ships and drowns all your friends and everything else. So the changeability of the sea literally manifests itself in the mutability of the sea gods and goddesses. They can change shape, and Proteus is best known for that, and that's why we get like the character Proteus in Marvel Comics, who can change form and do all this crazy stuff, because he is a sea god. So Proteus says, you have to come upon Thetis while she's sleeping, which again Peleus already did, but this time you have to put her in bondage, essentially, every kind of noose and snare you know of, and hold her and wait as she changes forms over and over and over again, and eventually she'll stop, and then you can have sex with her, essentially. Mutability is murder. And the sun set, his car down-sloping to the ocean of the west, as Thetis came, as always, to her rest in that dark cave. Peleus had scarcely touched her when she began her changing, but she found she was held fast, her arms spread wide, and sighing she said, you must have had a god to help you. And so revealed herself, gave way, all Thetis, and Peleus took her, so, and had his pleasure, and filled her with their son, the great Achilles. Peleus was happy in his son, his goddess, happy in everything, if you forget the murder of his brother. Dun, dun, dun. So let me just briefly finish that one, because we're going to dive headlong right into the next story. And here, too, Proteus teases like this great story about how Thetis is going to give 100 lies. She's going to change all these forms. But no, we just hear she realizes that she's tied up, and she's like, all right, take me. We're done with this. No. But yes, she was held fast, her arms spread wide. That is how he bound her. And yes, Peleus and Thetis' son is the great Achilles. Okay, so now we're going to go into a more minor story, but it does have some cool things going on in it. So yes, Peleus is thinking about the murder of his brother. Now, we haven't heard anything about this up until this point. With that blood upon his hands, he left his father's kingdom, finding asylum in the land of Trachis. Here Caix was king, who shone with all his father's brightness on his face, ruling a peaceful realm. But in these days he was sorrowful, unlike himself, in shadow over a brother lost. To him came Peleus, careworn and travel-worn, with few companions, entering the city. In a shady valley not far from the walls, he left the sheep and cattle he had brought with him, and as he neared the presence of the land's ruler, reached, with suppliant hand, the branch of olive toward him, and the fillets, and told him who he was, whose son he was, concealing only his crime, with lying reasons to justify his flight, asking asylum in city or countryside. And Caix spoke kindly, "Our kingdom, Peleus, lies always open to humble people, and our disposition is further bent by your illustrious lineage. There is no need of further prayer. Call on us for what you wish. Whatever you see is yours. Only I wish that what you saw was better." He spoke and wept, and Peleus and his people wondered and asked him why, and heard the story. So again, we're going to dive into someone else's story within a larger story within a larger story. So this is Caix, which is a pretty cool name, telling the story of this character, and I'm going to see if you can guess what the transformation is going to be here, because it's Caix and Daedalion. We'll see. You never know. It could be a trick. The Hades video game. We got into the Hades video game with Pete Wiz, not last week but the week before, on our Myths and Video Game show, and we watched like a couple of hours worth of gameplay condensed, and there's some references to some pretty R-rated stories even in that video game. But yeah, that game was super cool. I absolutely love the art in that. Very cool. Yeah, lots of nesting stories in here. "You think, perhaps," Caix said, "that bird you see there, hunter of other birds and terror to them, was always feathered. No, he was once a man, by name Daedalion. Then, as now, for character as constant, he was fierce, aggressive, a lover of war, and harshness always. We were both sons of the morning star, and I loved peace and loved my wife, whereas my brother was all aggression, dominating kings and nations with that predatory instinct which now, in different form, pursues the doves in the little town of Thisbe. He had a daughter, Chione. She was lovely, and she had 1,000 suitors, more or less, though hardly into her teens." It happened that one day Apollo, coming back from Delphi, saw her, and Mercury, coming from Cyllene, saw her, and when they saw, they wanted her. Apollo could wait till night, but Mercury, more eager, touched the girl's face with sleep-compelling wand, and under his touch she lay, and felt his power. His power. And night had spangled heaven with its stars by the time Apollo came to her, disguised in an old woman's form, to take the pleasure the other god had taken first. In time, a son was born, Autolycus, a schemer with an inheritance, honestly come by, of sheer dishonesty, the kind of fellow to make white black, or vice versa, worthy son of his father. And Apollo's offspring, for Chione bore twins, was called Philemon, famous with song and lyre. But little good it did Chione to have borne 2 sons, found favor with 2 gods, and be descended from Morning Star and Jove. Glory is often an evil too, it has been so with many. It surely was with her, for she had boasted herself above Diana, and disparaged the beauty of that goddess, who retorted, "Our actions, it may be, will suit you better," and bent the bow, sent the swift arrow flying to pierce that guilty tongue, and the tongue was silent, forming no words, no sounds, and as she tried to speak, life left her with her blood. My sorrow was like a father's sharing my brother's grief, and I said words to comfort him. He heard them as a rock hears the murmur of the ocean, and all the answer he gave was lamentation, until he saw the funeral pyre burning. Then he dashed toward the fire. 4 times he tried to join his daughter, and 4 times was driven back from the pyre, and rushed the way a bullock rushes with hornets at his neck and shoulders, where no path lay. And in his rush, he seemed swifter than any human being could be. You would think his feet had wings. He fled us all, swift in his longing for death, and gained Parnassus and flung himself from that high cliff. Apollo took pity on him, held him high in air on sudden wings, made him a bird, and gave him hooked beak, hooked talons. But he left him still his old-time fierceness, greater than his body, and now he is a hawk, vindictive judger, with charity to none, for having suffered, he must make others suffer. Yeah, what is good in life? Drive your enemies before you. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this story. So Ceyx is telling about his brother Daedalion. He has a daughter, Chione. Yeah, lots of drama. Yeah, so Chione was she was barely into her teens, but she was super hot. So much so that she had 1,000 suitors. All the gods wanted her. Hey Vash, welcome. Vash. There's a YouTuber I watch whose name is Vash, so that was on my mind. Yeah, Aaron, how long will it take them to learn that elevating anyone above the gods or goddesses never ends well? Well, I mean, hey, look, Ovid needs to fill a whole book with stories, right? So yeah, Chione she's so attractive. And then there's this super weird story. So Apollo is coming from Delphi, and Mercury is coming from Cyllene. And they both see her, and they both want her. But Apollo's like, I'm going to wait. I'll come at night, because that's better for these sorts of things. And Mercury's like, I'm doing this now. But in one day, they both sleep with her, and then she later bears twins. One of them is Autolycus, which you might remember. Might be a character you're familiar with from a certain Hercules and TV show. Yeah. And yeah, but then even after bearing those twins, she says she's more beautiful than Diana, and of course the gods murder her for that. Okay, so I'm going to skip the story of Peleus's cattle, and we're going to go to the quest of Ceyx. So we're not quite done with him. Oh, this is a good story. Lots to talk about. So this is a little bit of a longer one, but there's some cool stuff going on in here. Yes, the Prince of Thieves. So again, there's more stories happening, blah, 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 blah. King Ceyx was troubled, anxious over his brother's fate, and other portents following that. And so he planned to journey to Claros, to the oracle that offers help to mankind in trouble. Oh, now we should say that there are lots of oracles. There were lots of oracles in the ancient world. It just so happens that the oracle at Delphi was the most famous, right? And the one that we know the most about these days. But there were other oracles spread out all over the place. In fact, the next line here. He might have gone to Delphi, which was nearer, but the road was dangerous, with Phorbas and the Phlegians profaning it with lawless depredation. Don't want any of that. He told Alcyone, and she was frightened, chilled to the bone, and her face was pale as boxwood. She wept and tried to speak 3 times, and could not utter a word for weeping, and at last spoke through her sobbing. "Oh, my dearest husband, what fault of mine has brought this purpose on you? Do you not love me any more? How can you abandon me with never a thought? The road is long, and you are happy. Am I dearer in absence? You are going overland, I trust, I hope, so I shall only grieve, not grieve in terror, for the sea is frightful, its look appalling. Not so long ago, I looked at timbers broken on the shore. I have read on empty tombs the names of sailors. And do not fool yourself with false assurance, because my Father rules the winds and holds them behind strong bars, and when he wills can calm the ocean's rage. I tell you, when the winds have been turned loose, have gained the deep, they suffer no calling back, and every land and ocean is at their mercy. They will even batter at heaven and rouse red lightning with their warfare. The more I know them, and I really know them, I have seen them when I was a little girl around my father's house, the more I think them dreadful indeed. But if no prayer, dear husband, can change your purpose, only too determined to go, then take me with you. We shall be tossed by the storms together, and together can fear what we endure, and shall not need to fear what we imagine. We can endure whatever comes, so we endure together. Okay, so KX, the king, is going to go off and try to find out what's happened to his brother. He's going to go to the Oracle at Claros, which is an island, one of the many, many, many Greek islands that has a name ending in OS. And his wife, what's her name? Alcyone, is afraid for him leaving. And she goes on this long, pleading speech, asking him not to go. First asking him not to go. And it's all about how afraid she is of ocean travel. Now, again, if you've watched any of my mythology streams or Thursday streams when I do them, not often, I've talked so much about this. Ancient people, even people who were renowned as sailors, Greeks, Romans, Vikings, Egyptians, terrified of the ocean, of the open ocean. Terrified. Everything about the ocean was scary. The water itself, the winds, nightfall, not being able to see where you're going. And yes, they did know how to navigate by stars, but what if you can't see the stars? What's in the ocean? What sea monsters? What other people might be out on the ocean? The ocean was super, super terrifying. And again, that's why the majority of ancient sea travel was only so far into the water as they could still see land. It was rare, and they tried to avoid it at all costs, is going over the horizon where you couldn't see land anymore. That was like only in the most desperate measures would you do that. Yeah, the sea is a scary freaking place. Yeah, even now. So here we get some like really poetic ways that Alcyone is trying to tell him, like, please don't go out to the ocean. It's scary there. Or if you do, take me with you. At least we'll be together. Yeah. I love that that we together can fear what we endure and shall not need to fear what we imagine. That's a cool line. All right, we got gardeners outside, so if there's some background noise, it is what it is. KX loved her. He was deeply moved. He could not give up his plan to go by sea, and could not expose her to such risk. He tried to soothe her, still she would not approve, and so he added one promise, the only one to win her over. Every delay is long to us, I know it. I swear to you, by the fires of the morning star, if fate will only let me, in 2 months I will be home again. So she was hopeful. He had the ship made ready, and once again, at sight of the ship, Alcyone was frightened with premonitions, wept again, embraced him, spoke one sad word, farewell, and could not bear it, fainting to the earth. Oh! And the young rowers, eager when KX would take it slow, drew back the oars to strong young breasts, and set the waters churning with even stroke. She raised her eyes and saw him on the high stern, waving his hand to her, and she waved back, and the ship went sailing on until she could not see him, but she watched the ship go sailing on. Hull down, it vanished, all but the sail, until she saw no longer even the sail. and turned to her lonely chamber, flung herself down to weep, and wept the more for place and couch brought home the sense of absence. Ooh, convoluted. Now he was gone. They had left the harbor. The wind freshened and rigging creaked, and the captain ordered, "Oars in!" They spread all sail, the ship went skimming. They were halfway over the sea, and night came on with roughening wave, white water, and the wind rising to gale. "Lower the yard! Reef sail!" the captain ordered, but his cry was drowned in the yell of the wind and the uproar of the ocean. But some of them, from their own wit and knowledge, had sense enough to ship the oars, to reef the sail, to take the yard arms down, to fasten whatever could be fastened, to bail out water, pouring the sea into the sea again. And through all this confusion, still the wind was rising. It seemed to come from every quarter, seas running mountain high, until the captain lost all his nerve. He did not know, he told them, what shape the ship was in. He could not give them orders. Whatever he said, the storm knew better. It had more power than he did. All was riot, the shouts of men, the creaking of the cordage, the roar of the wave, the artillery of thunder. Ooh, such cool imagery here. The spray was flung at the stars, the water yellowed with sand sucked up from the depths. The water blackened the color of Stygian waters, or the waves spread out all white with seething foam. The ship had only one chance as master. Now she rode high on the mountain top and saw below her valleys and pit of hell. Or now she sank deep in the trough, and from the infernal pools looked up at heaven's mountains. And her sides took crashing blows, the pound of the waves as heavy as battering ram against the walls of a fortress. Even as savage lions gain new fury, as they come charging on to breast the weapons, the arms held out against them, so the billows, lashed by the rising winds, rush at the vessel, and tower high. And the hull gives way, the caulking is loosened, death pours in. From the bursting clouds, rain falls in torrents. You would think that heavens were drowning in the seas, or oceans mounting the regions of the sky. The sails are dripping, salt and fresh water mingled. Not a star shines in the sky, and the night darkens under its own and the storm's gloom. But lightning blinks across the shadows, and the waters redden under sheets of fire. God damn, this is cool. The flood comes pouring into the hull. You may have seen a soldier, more daring than the others, in his effort to scale the walls until at last, triumphant, burning for praise, he leaps the wall and stands one man among 1,000. So, when the waves 9 times have battered at the ship's tall sides, the 10th one, leaping higher, comes on with a rush, climbs over, and goes down inside the vessel. Part of the waves are still, at best, besiegers. Part are within the walls. Skill fails. Nerve falters. There is death in every wave. One man is crying. Another stricken dumb. One envies the dead on land who may be buried, and another calls on the gods in prayer and lifts his arms in vain to skies he cannot see. One man thinks of his brothers and his father, one of home and children, all of what is gone. But Ceyx thinks of Alcyone. No other is in his heart, and through the pain of absence finds consolation that she is not with him. He would turn his gaze to her, toward home and country, if he knew where to look. But where he is he does not know, for the sea boils black, and shadows of pitch-black cloud hide all the sky. The darkness is double night. So everything is smashing to bits, and Ceyx's last thought is of his wife and how he's glad he did not let her come with him. A whirling rush of wind shatters the mast, and the rudder breaks and shatters. One final wave, prouder than any victor, looks down upon the rest. Athos and Pindus could do no worse, if torn from their foundations and hurled in the open sea. This final wave came toppling down, and under its great weight the ship went to the bottom, and the sailors, most of them if not all, in the suck of the whirlpool saw their last day in that black night. A few had wreckage to hold on to. Caix himself, with the hand that held a scepter, clung to something, some fragment of a spar, and called in vain on Lucifer, on Aeolus, most of all, on his remembered wife. Over and over the swimmer calls her name, prays that the waves may wash his body to her over the waters, that in his death her hands, so dear to him, may tend his funeral offices. He calls her while he can keep afloat, as long as the waves forbear to choke him. He calls Alcyone. He murmurs her name into the rush of the waters. At last a huge black arc of water, swinging up, over and down, plunges him fathoms under. The morning star was dim that day. You could not tell him at all, morning behind the clouds, unable to quit his station in the heavens. Yikes. And again, I didn't mention this before, but lots of like really specific naval wording here. Because again, the Romans were sailors. They knew about sailing and ships and how to man them. Ovid obviously knew about these things or did research, talking about yard arms and reef sails and all this sort of thing. Boats are a thing. Yeah, exactly. Once upon a time, when I was in high school, when I was a Boy Scout, I did some sailing, so I actually knew what a lot of that stuff was, but I couldn't tell you anymore. Hello, everybody, welcome. So Caix is going down under the waves. Meanwhile, quite ignorant of all this evil, Alcyone was counting off the days, weaving the robes for him to wear, and weaving those she will wear when he comes home, so sure he will come home to her. She burned the incense for all the gods, but most of all for Juno, approached her altar meekly in petition for one who lived no more. So poor Alcyone is at home. She's making clothing to wear in celebration when he gets back. She's praying to all of the gods. She's meek. She's doing everything she's supposed to do. So she's praying to Juno, "Oh, keep him safe. Let him return. Let him love no other woman." Only this last of all her prayers was granted. Oh, so painful. But Juno found this irksome, all the praying for a man dead and gone. To free her altar from the touch of morning hands, she summoned Iris, ordered her to the drowsy house of sleep, to tell that god to send Alcyone a dream of Caix, to tell the truth about him. So Iris, in her 1,000-colored mantle, a rainbow through the sky, sought out the palace under the cloud, the royal home of sleep. Okay, so this is really shitty here. Alcyone is like, she's pretty much like the perfect woman, the perfect wife, however you want to describe it. She was worried about her husband leaving. She begged him not to go. She begged him that even if he had to go, to take her with him, wanted to share in whatever hardships he was going to find, anything to be afraid of, they could face together. While he's gone, she's making clothing for the two of them. She's doing all of the proper sacrifices to all of the gods. She's meek. She's praying to Juno. And Juno is annoyed at listening to all these prayers, and that there's basically, she's sad that there's or rather, Juno is upset that there's a sad woman hanging out and bothering her in her temple. That's pretty freaking harsh. So she summons Iris, another messenger god, or goddess in this case, to go to sleep with a capital S, to send a dream to Alcyone to reveal what happened to her husband. Far down under a Cimmerian mountain, a cavern winds, the home of lazy sleep, his dwelling place and shrine. No sunlight ever comes there at morning, noon, or evening, only a dubious twilight, and the ground is dark with mist, and the fog settles there. No bird with clarion cry ever calls out the morning. Dogs never break the silence with their barking. Geese never cackle. Cattle never low. No boughs move in the stir of air. No people talk in their human voices. Only quiet. From under the rock's base, a little stream, a branch of Lethe, trickles with a murmur over the shiny pebbles, whispering, "Sleep." Before the doors, great beds of poppies bloom, and other herbs, whose juices night distills to sprinkle slumber over the darkened earth. Did you catch that? So we have the domain, the abode of sleep, and it's very quiet there. No animals disturb it. There's no sunlight. There's just kind of a murmuring of a stream, and there are poppies growing there. So what do we know you can make from poppies that has to do with calm and possibly sleeping, and other herbs that you can distill into things? There is no door to turn upon its hinge with jarring sound, no guardian at the gate, but in the very center, a dark couch rises on ebony framework, all one color, downy and soft, and with a counterpane of black thrown over it. Here the god is lying, dissolved in slumber, and around him lie in various forms the unsubstantial dreams, as numerous as the wheat ears of the harvest, the green leaves of the woods, or grains of sand along the shore. Pizza, yeah. The maiden goddess entered, using her hands to part the dreams, to clear her way, and the shining of her garments brightened the holy home, and the god saw her, blinking his eyes half open, letting them close, nodded, woke almost, over and over, tried, failed over and over, and roused himself and leaned, supported on one elbow, recognized her, and asked why she had come there. So we have this it's essentially like the perfect stoner den, right? It's dark, it's quiet, there's a little bit of a murmur from a stream, they've got all the really good herbs growing there, and then this goddess comes in. She is super bright and shining in all these colors. She literally pushes the dreams aside to get in there, which is kind of another cool image. And the god, Sleep, is like, what is going on? His eyes are half closed. He tries to wake up. He falls back asleep. He tries to wake up again. Eventually he looks at her and lifts himself up just on one elbow. Is like, what is going on here? To talk to her. And she answered, "O mildest of the gods, most gentle Sleep, rest of all things, the spirit's comforter, router of care, O soother and restorer, Juno sends orders. Counterfeit a dream to go in the image of King Caix to Trachis, to make Alcyone see her shipwrecked husband." And, her instructions given, Iris left him, for all too soon the magic spell of slumber was stealing through her limbs, and she soared upward along the rainbow arch she had descended. Dark side of the moon, that's good. So Iris gives her message quickly and leaves, because even she, a goddess, is being dragged down by the sleepy vibe of Sleep's abode. I don't know, maybe it's a contact high. And Sleep roused Morpheus from his 1,000 sons, best of them all at imitating humans, their garb, their gait, their speech, rhythm, and gesture. It is only men he imitates. Another assumes the form of beast or bird or serpent, and him the gods call Icalos, but mortals call him Phobator. A third is Phantasos, who has a different skill, wears shapes of earth, rocks, water, trees, and all inanimate things. There are dream gods here who show themselves by night, to kings and rulers only, and there are others who come to common people. The old god passes them by and chooses from the brothers Morpheus alone, to do what Iris ordered. Then, once more in soft drowsiness, all loosened, he let his nodding head find the deep pillow. So here's a cool scene. Sleep, the god, goes and visits all of his, 1,000 sons. Not the 1,000 sons, but 1,000 sons. And they're all different forms of dreams that come to humans. And each one has his own specific job that he does. So we find out that Morpheus is essentially the dream god who imitates people in your dreams. Whereas Icalos imitates animals in dreams. Icalos, also known as Phobator, and then there's Phantasos, who basically takes the form of inanimate things. And so there are all these dreams that come and do different things in human dreams. If you're watching the Blood of Zeus, the new anime show on Netflix, this exact scene is relayed in episode 2. I'm only a couple episodes in, but essentially they're talking about, can you trust dreams? And that, dreams are basically visions that come from gods, and that and they literally go through these 3 gods in the scene. They talk about Morpheus, Phobator, and Phantasos, and about which one does what. No, I'm sorry. I'm not okay, sorry, hold on. I'm not eye-rolling at anime in general. I'm sort of eye-rolling at how Netflix determines which of its productions are animation and anime based on the style and who works on them, which is kind of arbitrary. That's what I meant. I'm eye-rolling Netflix and their determination of what their determination of what is anime and what isn't. Yeah, because when you turn it on, it literally says a Netflix anime. It's like, okay, but is it technically? I don't know. But yeah, so anyway, so this scene is in that episode. Like I said, I've only watched the first 2 or 3 episodes. I didn't love the first episode. There were some parts of it that were super cool. When it gets into the gigantomachy, that part was super, super neat. Episode 2 was better, so I'm definitely planning on watching it when I have time. I wanted to watch a couple episodes, and then I was going to decide if I wanted to do any sort of watch-alongs with it, which I still might. But still need to watch a few more episodes, see how it goes. So, Morpheus has his marching orders. Morpheus flew on noiseless wings, through darkness, came to the city, and put off his pinions, and took the face and form of Caix, the pallor a dead man has, and naked stood before Alcyone's bed. His beard was wet, and water streamed from his sodden hair, and tears ran down as he bent over her. "O wretched wife, do you recognize your husband? Have I changed too much in death? Look at me. You will know me, your husband's ghost, no more your living husband. I am dead, Alcyone. Your prayers brought me no help at all. Cherish your hope no longer." Oh, harsh. "The storm winds caught my ship and wrecked her there, far out on the Aegean, and my mouth, calling your name, had salt to drink. No rumor, no doubtful message this. I, as you see me, a shipwrecked man, tell you my fate. Arise, weep for me, and put on your mourning garments. Let me not fare an unlamented journey to the cheerless world below." The voice of Morpheus was that of Caix. How could she help but know it? The tears were real, and even the hands were moving the way his used to. So in her sleep she wept and wailed and tried to take him in her arms, found nothing but the air, and cried aloud, "Wait for me! I will go wherever you do." Her own voice woke her. Seeing him, she started, looking for him in the lamplight, for the servants, hearing her cries, had brought in light. She looked and did not see him, and she struck her cheeks, tore at her hair, tore off her robes, her fists beating at her breasts. She screamed at the poor nurse who asked her what her trouble was. The Queen Alcyone is nothing, dead with Ceyx. Give me no comfort. He is dead, shipwrecked and dead. I saw him, and I knew him. I reached my hands out to him, but he vanished. I would have held him back. It was a ghost, my husband's ghost. It could not be mistaken, though it looked different, and the light was gone he used to wear. I saw him, pale and naked, his hair still dripping. Oh, I know I saw him. He just stood there. And she broke off to see if there were any footprints. This I knew. This I could see. And when you went sailing from me, I begged you not to leave me. And you might have taken me with you. That would have been better, to be with you in life, and in our death not to have been divided. I have perished far from myself, far from myself. I am flung, tossed on the cruel waves, and the sea holds me where I am not. My heart would be more cruel than ever the sea was to me if I tried to keep on living to survive my sorrow. I shall not try. I shall not leave you, husband, and now at least I shall come to you, be with you. The tomb may never join us two together, but the letter on the stone will be more kindly. Bones may not lie with bones, but name and name will touch each other. Grief would let her say no more, and all her words went out in wailing. Dun, dun, dun. Sounds like you should do a detailed breakdown of these episodes. I mean, I might. Yeah. It was morning, and she left her house to wander along that seashore, found the place again where she had watched him sail, and while she lingered, and while she said, just here he loosed the cable, just here he stood and kissed me. Dwelling so on every recollection, out to sea she gazed, and out at sea caught sight of something. A body, it might have been. She was not sure at first, but the waves washed it a little closer. It was a body, whose she could not tell, but someone shipwrecked, and the omen moved her to weep for the unknown dead. Alas, poor fellow, whoever you are, poor wife, if you are married. And the waves washed the body a little closer to her great hurt, and as it neared the land, she knew it was her husband. Here he is, she screamed, and reached her trembling hands out, crying, oh, my poor husband, my dearest, must you come home so to me? There was a jetty there to break the onslaught of the rushing ocean. She ran along it, leaped into the sea, a marvel that she could, and never fell. She seemed to skim the surface like a bird on new-found wings, and as she flew, unhappy, her mouth, a slender bill, made sounds like one complaining, sorrowful. She reached the body lifeless and still, tried to embrace the limbs with her new wings, in vain, and tried to kiss cold lips with her rough bill. No one could say whether Ceyx felt those kisses and responded, or whether it was the lift of the waves alone that made him raise his face. But he had felt them, and through the pity of the gods, the husband became a bird and joined his wife. Together they suffered and together loved. No parting followed them in their newfound form as birds. They mate, have young, and in the winter season, for 7 days of calm, Alcyone broods over her nest on the surface of the waters, while the sea waves are quiet. Through this time, Aeolus keeps his winds at home, and ocean is smooth for his descendants' sake. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So she goes out to watch the waters, remembering where she sent off her husband. And she sees what looks like something on the horizon. It looks like a body floating toward her. And it is her husband, the body of her husband. So she tries to jump in the water, but she's so sad, she turns into a bird. Tries to embrace and kiss her husband's body on the waves. The waves even make it look like his face is rising up to her. And he's turned into a bird too. And they live forever on as birds. I don't know exactly what bird this is referring to. It's some bird that makes a nest on the water, apparently. I don't know. It doesn't say here. And yeah. Pretty freaking sad. And we get that transformation right at the very end. But murder fish. But yeah, as sad as it is, I find that story fascinating, just with all of the nautical stuff and the depiction of dreams and the gods of sleep and the abode of sleep. I think it's and again, just the imagery and the beseeching, especially of Alkyone. Some really, really moving language in that story. It's a good one. The next one we're going to skip, the story of Aesacus and Hesperia. And that will take us to the end of book 11. And next time, we will start with book 12, the invasion of Troy. And so we'll actually get, briefly, some stories about the Trojan War. Some interesting ones. And then basically it'll kind of spiderweb out through some of the characters who were at Troy and stories they have to tell and some of their backgrounds. And yeah, that'll be next time. Nestor, Nestor loves to tell stories. Ooh, and then book 13 is the argument between Ajax and Ulysses. So again, Ulysses for the Romans is Odysseus. So the argument between Ajax and Ulysses for the armor of Achilles. Can't wait for that one, because you know how I feel about Ajax and Odysseus. I have strong opinions on these characters. That'll be a really good one. It's also a really long story. There's a lot of detail in it. Oh, I can't wait. I want to read it now. And then we get, yeah. And they get Ulysses. I just combined the two of them. Ulysses going home and all of his trials and tribulations. Zarda says, is that the one where the Jedi have to save Anakin and Obi-Wan? I know, right? I have some strong opinions of characters in Greek mythology. Wow, I have such strong opinions that 4 viewers just left. Bye. I know, you can't trust the viewer count in Streamlabs. It's highly inaccurate. I don't sweat it. Although, I don't know, these days, especially in the morning, I figure that if my view count is low, it probably means Hyper's doing something silly. That's fine. A lot of my best and most loyal people, Hyper just went live. That's what I figured. It's fine. Many of you came to know me through Hyper, so yes, I do not begrudge people going over to check out what they are doing, and they do great stuff. Of course they do great stuff. They had me on, and will again, hopefully one day. Yes, but we will stop there for today, and yeah, we'll pick up with stories about Troy and characters at Troy next time. Yeah. So this week, again, normal stuff. Toys tomorrow, Warhammer Wednesday, Myths and Video Games Wednesday afternoon with Pete, and multiple tabs. It seems like there's still some people out there who haven't quite mastered multiple tabs. Yeah, if you have a chance, swing by YouTube, subscribe to my channel. Once you hit a certain number of subscribers, you can actually have like the URL include your name, but no big deal. You don't have to like get notifications or anything. I'm nowhere near the point where any of that is going to matter for anything. Zenblade says, any more board game content in the near future by chance? Possibly. I definitely have more board games around that I have not delved into greatly. I've got some older games that I haven't looked at in a while. I have this game. What's the name of that game? Hold on one second. Let me make sure I have the name right. Oh yeah, I have this game called I Am Vlad, Prince of Wallachia. Anybody know that game? It's famous as this just insanely huge, sprawling board, and the game takes days to play. It's pretty rad. I was thinking that one day I should break that out. I only played it a couple times. I actually got a review copy of that once a long time ago. Learned all the rules, played a game with a friend of mine. We took a bunch of pictures, and I haven't played it since. So should do that again. Maybe I can get Jessica to come over for a figure Friday, and we can do that. Teach her how to play it. Yeah. Where's a good link to this one? But yeah, I literally just thought about that last night. We were going over some stuff in Benjamin's closet, and he was asking, "Oh, can we play all those games up there?" And I was like, "Well, that game maybe not quite yet. It's a little complicated. It's interesting for sure." I'm just looking up. Yeah, that was a cool game. Once upon a time, many moons ago, I had a website. So, that I'm sure you all know that I write for figures.com. Periodically, I do toy reviews and miniature reviews and things like that. And once upon a time, I had a thought that I'm into miniatures. There are clearly other people out there who are into miniatures. There's a crossover on figures.com. There always was when I would do like more board game kind of content. And so I thought, you know what? What if I had my own miniature news and reviews site that was under the figures.com umbrella? And so I did that. So for a short time, I had a website called Crit to Hit, based on something you would say in HeroClix and some other games. So I had this website. It was cool. It was a good idea. For again, a brief shining moment, that website was going to have support from WizKids. We were going to have like a partnership with Miniature Market. Like it was going to be amazing. And none of those things happened. So ran the site for a couple of years and then let it quietly fade off into the distance. But we did some fun stuff with it. I went to Gen Con with that site and covered things, which was cool. That was my first time I had been to Gen Con. Yeah, Zardoz, you know what? It's the internet. These things happen. I don't regret it. Like I said, I got some... I met some interesting people through it. Got to do some fun stuff. It could have been something much bigger, but it happens. Basically, there was a dude at Miniature Market who was a recent hire, and he was like this. I think he was formerly a consultant. He talked like a former consultant, but we met up with him at Gen Con, and he was like, "Yeah, you have this website, you have all this content from figures.com. Basically, we can reuse all of your previous HeroClix reviews and everything else. We can like rebrand it and make it into a database, and we can talk to WizKids, and we can do it." Like, he was really excited, had all these ideas, and he was some sort of high up at Miniature Market, like in charge of social media and something else and blah blah blah. And he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go back to the office. I think they're based in St. Louis. We're gonna go back to the office after Gen Con. We're gonna write this up. We're gonna send out like memos and contracts and all this other stuff." And then and like I think it was 3 days later, not even a full week. 3 days later, he was fired by Miniature Market. I don't know why to this day, but it was like, oh, okay, so that's all completely gone. So again, it happens. It was very informative, I had been informed because at the company I previously worked for, there was a former consultant who was hired on to be part of the company, and I did not enjoy working with that individual. And so like I was used to that the sort of speak that I was hearing, so I was able to cut through it a little bit. But yeah. Crit to hit could have been something, but what are you gonna do? Let's see. We'll raid. Why not? Raiding is good. It engenders positivity. Yeah, it's probably the guy who's supposed to update Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, Miniature Market, they're great in a lot of ways, but they have their failings as well. I've certainly given that company so much money over the years, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. Oh my god, my internet is going so slowly. Hold on, give me 1 second, everybody. Minis for the mini throne, exactly. It's their, oh man, when they do those crazy sales, those clearance, and you can just get so much crap, that gets me every time. So thanks everybody for hanging out and listening. I know not all the stories today were the most interesting on their face, but the stuff I get to talk about with that, I really, really love. Okay, let's do this. Give me my raid menu. I will be on later on today, 5 o'clock Pacific time, with over on Jessica's channel, Jessica Nerdy. We will be continuing our read through of Dune, the Dune series. I mean, we may read Dune today. I don't know exactly what we'll be doing, but we'll be doing something. We'll probably read. And then tomorrow I will be back here with toys, Toy Tuesday. Oh yeah, Black Friday stuff. Yeah, Black Friday will be interesting to see what all websites do with that. Should be good. Okay. See everybody later, either at Dune later on today or Toys tomorrow. Go say hi to the people at Hyper. Let everybody else know there that I'm awesome and that they can come and see me in the morning if Hyper's not on yet. All right. Bye, everybody. Raiding is happening. What? Tell the Hyper viewers that to follow me so that when Hyper's not on, they can come watch me.